Hi everyone! So today we're going to be taking a look at the plants that have kind of been my favorites this winter, and I can't believe it is already time to do a winter favorites video. I seriously feel like we just did the fall favorites video. I cannot believe how fast time is going by, but here we are. So I have a handful of plants that have really just been impressing me over this past winter months. And I want to start with the one that just has impressed me the most in the last few weeks, and that is my Hoya Cronana Super Silver. And the reason I am so impressed with this plant right now is because it has gotten its first bloom. I was so shocked when I walked into my bedroom and discovered that this plant had bloomed. I was just, oh my gosh, I was over the moon. I was so excited. I'll try and get this a little bit closer up for you if the camera will focus. So tons of little tiny white flowers here, and I'm here to tell you right now, it smells amazing. So this is the first time that I have actually had one of my Hoyas bloom. Now, just a reminder, I haven't exactly had all of my Hoyas that long, and a lot of them are not super mature. And depending on the type of Hoya, sometimes I find that a lot of people have to wait until they're a little bit more mature for them to start to bloom. But sometimes, you guys, it's just condition specific. If you get them in just the right conditions, or if you stress them just the right amount, they will bloom. I honestly didn't do anything special to this one. It's just been living in an east-facing window in my bedroom. And like I said, I just was shocked when I walked in and discovered that. So super impressed with this plant. It is still putting out a ton of new growth in terms of leaves as well. And I have noticed, you guys, so I bought this at a local plant store called Nicholson Hardy. And I have seen a lot of people, planty people in the area, who bought this plant there as well, probably around the same time that I got this one. I've been seeing them posting on their Instagrams that theirs is blooming too. So apparently all of them are blooming. So either we all just had perfect conditions, or these plants were just primed to bloom at this point. But definitely super impressive. Hold on, Theo's about to knock the mic over. Okay, I think we're good to go. One of the legs of the microphone stand was on his scratching post, and so he was playing on his scratching post, but it was trying to knock the mic over. All right, so back to what I was saying. Absolutely impressed with this plant. Can't wait to see if it starts to get some more blooms in addition to just this one, but regardless, super happy about this. Okay, the next plant I want to look at, this one really is throwing me for a loop, you guys. So in our fall favorites video, we talked about Rose. So Rose is my Rosa Picta medallion, Calathea Rosa Picta medallion, and I mentioned that she was really impressing me because last fall and winter, like, she really did nothing, but this fall and also winter, she's been pumping out a ton of new growth. Well, I have another Calathea that has started to do the same thing, and this one usually does absolutely nothing for me during the winter. In fact, frequently it loses leaves without getting any new leaves in the winter. Now, it's not to say that we have not lost any leaves on this plant. I think I've removed 2 or 3 during the winter, but this plant is taken off, you guys. Like, just in the last week, I'm like, what is happening here? And that is my beautiful Calathea ornata. Now, over the summer, we had started to get some much bigger and taller leaves going on this plant than we've had before. But will you look at this new one that's about to unfurl right here? Look at that leaf. That is going to be an enormous leaf. That is going to be the largest leaf that this plant has ever had. And I just cannot believe that it is putting it out during the winter. But in addition to that, hopefully you can see back here, we have another new leaf coming in here. We have another new leaf coming in right here. So this plant, once again, I don't know why, but it has just decided that it is going to take off out of nowhere. So if we're already doing this during the winter, I'm super excited to see what we're going to do during the spring and summer. Now, this plant has not changed location in my house, even though it really probably needs to, because it's definitely blocking my TV. I was trying to watch a show that had subtitles the other day, and I had to move her. It was not happening. I could not see the subtitles because of her leaves. But she is still just living on my coffee table in my living room, so that is about, I guess, 7-8 feet back from my southern-facing windows. Absolutely loves life there, clearly, because look what we're doing. We are probably about to lose this leaf at some point here in the near future. The only reason I say that, because I'm sure you guys are looking at this and thinking, well, it looks perfectly healthy to me. Correct, but it shouldn't be pointing down like that. As you can see, all of the other ones are pointing up right now, except for this one, and this one has not really been moving and following the light at all throughout the day like the leaves on Calatheas do. And so usually that's a good indicator that this leaf is getting ready to die off. So when I see this behavior on leaves for plants like this, usually probably about like a week after this, it'll start yellowing. So it looks fine now, but I guarantee you it's about to be on its way out. But so impressed with this plant. This definitely was one of my more fussy calatheas when I first got her, but I don't know, we just found a happy point, a happy place that she likes to live, and now things are going fabulously. We are probably going to need to do a repot though in the spring, because I think I repotted this plant once, maybe, probably not even a year after I got it, just to get it into better soil, but it hasn't been taken up a pot size, so I have a feeling we're starting to get pretty root bound, but we will check for that here in the next few months and take her up to a larger pot if needed. Okay, let me put these two plants back and grab our next plant because it is a trailing plant, and I'm going to have to just get it, show it, and put it back so that the cats don't try to play with it. Okay guys, next up I have another Hoya, and this is my oh so beautiful Hoya Linearis, and as you can see, we have just gotten incredibly long. It has been quite a while since we gave this plant a trim. We did pot some of the cuttings back up into the top. They are starting now to grow over the edge here, as you can see. It took them, a few of them, quite a while to kind of establish and start to grow. This is the one that's really starting to take off right now. So there's still some up here that are pretty short that should start to fill in a bit more quickly now that they're pumping out new growth. Not unexpected, they really like to work on producing those roots first before they're going to start to push new growth, but it is now starting to happen, so I'm really excited about that. You can see here are some other ones here that we had put back up in the top as well. So this is really going to start to fill in more quickly now, which I'm super excited about. However, we are so long right now. I had her on one of the lower shelves on the back or on the wall above my couch. I had to move her up to the top shelf because she was growing so fast and she was starting to hit the couch, but I really didn't want to trim her. But now she's already grown so much faster that she's about to hit the couch again. So we are going to have to give her another haircut here soon. I don't know if we will add back into the top or not. We still have some room just looking at it, so we could potentially do that. She's really not as like developed from a root standpoint as I really expected her to be compared to my other Hoyas, and considering how long I've had her. Hopefully you guys can see in there that there's not like, you can't see a ton of roots, you can see some roots, but I just would expect to see way more roots at this point than I'm seeing in there, considering how long I've had this plant, and compared to, for example, I got my Hoya Linearis around the same time as this plant, and that plant, Theo, it is not a toy for you. You stop that. The Hoya Linearis has way more roots than this. I will try to splice in a photo here for you to see what I mean. Now, the Hoya Linearis actually has been living most of its life in the window, like directly in the windows behind my couch, so that might account for it, but this plant is on one of the closest shelves to the window, so it's not like it's getting drastically less light or anything like that. It may just be how the Linearis is. Maybe it just doesn't really produce roots as quickly or as fully before starting to pump out a ton of new growth, because they are smaller leaves. They're easier for the plant's root system to support than, for example, on a Linearis. So that might be the situation. Regardless, they're healthy roots, the plant's healthy and happy, and I'm just super excited to see all of this growth taking off, especially on these new bits that we put up in the top. All right, Theo is literally going nuts and attacking my leg trying to get to the bottom of this plant, so let me put her back. All right, you guys, so this next plant that I want to share with you is relatively new to my collection, but not relatively new to me. And what I mean by that is actually almost a year ago now, I originally acquired this plant for my rare plant inventory, but then earlier this year, which is funny to say earlier this year since it's only February. So last month I decided that I was going to add this to my personal collection because it is a wishlist plant, and this one has just been doing fabulously for me. So this is the Oh So Beautiful Filodendron gloriosum. And just a reminder for you guys, this is one of the plants that I accidentally dry rotted back in May when I was having everything going on in my life, unexpected bad things with Toby. And so we did remove all of the roots off of this plant and put it into water to develop new roots. And then I potted it up into this little rectangular container in a video with you guys, actually. And for those of you who don't recall, I originally had a plastic knife stuck on each side of the plant and some thread wound around to keep it upright because it was flopping over. I did remove that little janky get up right before this video because, as you can see, we are not having any kind of problem flopping over anymore, and that is because these roots have really spread around in here. I do need to water this right after this. I'm looking at this and it is pretty dry. That might account for why this leaf is looking a little bit on the edges. Oh, that is my bad. Sorry, plant. But that is also the oldest leaf. It could just be getting ready to die off. And honestly, you guys, it wouldn't surprise me because this plant has been pumping out a ton of new growth. So we have this new leaf that's come in, we have this new leaf that's come in, and we have another new leaf that is getting ready to come in right there. And we are probably going to have to repot this sometime soon because I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, it's bulging the plastic out here. It's already wanting to escape from the pot because this is a crawling philodendron. And so we are going to need to give it more room to crawl. Now, I kind of knew I was going to have to repot it pretty soon, but because I had had the issue with having rotted it before, I didn't want to go into a really large container. I wanted to go into a container that was barely big enough for the root system until it really got reestablished to soil. So I do have a slightly larger rectangular container like this that we will take it up to sometime here in the next few months. I mean, maybe you guys can see, can you see right where it's bulging? You see all these new roots that are starting to push out from this node where this new leaf is coming from. That's what these little 3 roots you see right there are. It's trying to cement that part of itself into the ground, as it were, so that it can continue crawling on. So we don't want to leave it like that for too long. It will find its way up over the edge, you guys. But like I said, I purposely put it in a pot that was barely big enough, and it's getting pretty root bound in there. But absolutely love it. So impressed with this plant. Hope it keeps growing at this rate. I have had it in the southeast facing window in my kitchen, and it seems to be doing okay with that. I honestly thought it would be maybe too much light for it, especially this time of year, because it is getting direct light. Like when I grabbed it to do this video, and I'm looking at the window right now, all the plants over there are getting direct light. Now, once again, I have replaced my windows with better windows, so that might have something to do with why it's not aggravating it really. But we are at that time of year now where over the course of the next few months, we won't get direct light in that window anymore anyways. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. And then eventually I may move it somewhere else, but I kind of actually like it over there. So that might be where it stays. But definitely been impressing me this winter, especially considering what it went through and had to come back from earlier in the year. Okay, next up, I don't even know. This plant, okay, so this plant, you can't see the planter on the wall above the setosa here, but there's a planter on the wall, and I've had different plants rotating through that planter, trying to find ones that would actually be happy there, and I did put my new very large Hoya Wilburgraves Russia up there after I got it in October at the Texas Airwood Show. It has really seemed to be enjoying itself up there to the point that it has started pumping out a ton of new growth. And I don't know what it's doing, you guys. I think I posted this on my Instagram, if you follow me, at Aloha Plant Life, a few weeks ago, may have been a month ago, you guys. I'm telling you, things are going so quickly in my life right now, I cannot keep up with like days, weeks, months, etc. But I posted that I didn't know what it was doing because it was sending out all this new growth in the fashion that Hoyas do, where it just looks like a bare stem and then eventually it grows leaves on it. But it was like going way far away from the Soltech light, like the cone of light that was coming down from the Soltech aspect light. And I was like, I don't know where it's going. Like, I don't know. There was nothing in that direction for it to grab onto. It was going like away from the light. So I was kind of like confused. And then last night I was sitting watching TV and I look at it and now it had gone straight back up towards the light and was pushing out yet another new growth point. Just long, fast. It's growing so fast, you guys. And I don't know where it's going with these branches. It's just cracking me up. Do you guys see this? I know it's going to be a little bit hard because I don't have like a white background behind me. But can you see how long this is? I might have to put some other footage in for you guys from where it actually lives so you can see this better. But it is so long. And then we've got another one right here that's pushing out. And this one is going off to the side, which is what this one was originally doing before it started going straight up. And it's just really funny to me, you guys, because honestly, that Soltech light probably is a bit too close to this plant. And the only reason I say that, I'm going to try to tilt it without having it fall over on me. The only reason I say that is because hopefully you can see these leaves are sun stressed. You see that slight pinkish coloration that's going on them? they are getting sun stress. So that Soltec light is pretty bright. So this is new growth. All this right up here on the top, this is really hard to tilt with this trellis, but all this growth up here at the top is new since I got it back in October. Hopefully you can see how like bushy this whole section looks. Now down here, we're a little bit barer where it's not getting as much light. But what I think I'm gonna end up doing is redirecting this back down around the trellis here, so that will help to fill this in a little bit. This side's not quite as bare as the other side, but it is definitely growing like mad. I can see actually now there's a new growth point right here as well that is really taking off. So, and in between all of this, like, never mind those growth points on the end, it's putting out new leaves like just in the middle of branches. Let me see if I can, like this whole cluster right here. You guys see that? Like right there? Those leaves just popped off out of nowhere, like off of a existing branch, not just off of the end of a branch, which is what we see happening over here. So it is really taking off and filling in. I am really hoping that maybe we will get blooms on this one here soon as well. That would make me super excited. We are a little bit dusty, I feel like. I probably need to give this guy a little bit of a wipe down here after this video, but definitely very impressed with this plant. Definitely, I mean, can't believe how much it's growing. I mean, this happened over the course of like less than a week, you guys. It just went nuts. And once again, we're like in the depths of winter. Not that it's like super cold here or anything, but we did during the month of February have like our coldest times here. So I'm just really, really, once again, impressed with this plant and like every plant we've looked at so far with what they're doing. They're kind of behaving like it's spring or summer, but they're doing it during the winter. So clearly I must be doing something right that they like. All right, let me put this in the Gloriosum back and grab our next few plants. You guys, I feel like we are a little bit blown out here. Maybe that's better. Sorry if things have been a little bit bright. Okay, so this next plant that I want to show you, this actually isn't part of my permanent collection. It is one of the plants that is in my inventory for my rare plant pop-up shops. But I have just been so impressed with this. So just a reminder, you guys, I have got quite a few Monstera Elbows that I am caring for in this house right now, and only one of them is actually my own. And it's interesting though, because I really kind of like, well, I'm kind of annoyed that I haven't been able to move more of them out of inventory than I have, to be honest with you. But it has been kind of nice having them all because I've been able to see the differences in how quickly they grow based on kind of different locations in the kitchen, which is where most of them live, in terms of the light they're getting. I do also now have some in leca as opposed to the rest are in my epiphyte mix. And it's just been interesting to kind of see the differences. But this one I'm about to show you, first of all, it is by far the most beautiful one that I currently have. And it has really been taking off more so than the other ones. So here she is, looking oh so beautiful. This is the oldest leaf right here. You can see we've got some nice marbling going on there, but also some nice sectoral variegation. I don't know what happened here. This was the leaf that came in after that. No clue, but it doesn't matter because as we continue on here, you can see getting a bit more towards half moon here, a little bit more towards half moon here, but then the most recent leaf, look at that beautiful leaf. Look how gorgeous that is. That leaf came out and I was so impressed, you guys. I mean, beautiful. I'm not gonna lie, I keep thinking about keeping this one for myself. I've got a problem, you guys. I've been sitting with too many of these plants in inventory for too long because like I said, we're coming up on a year. February 15th marked the 1-year anniversary from when I lost my corporate job and started doing rare plant pop-up shops and building up inventory. And so some of these plants I have had since, because I think I placed my first order with Aeroid Asia in March of last year. So we're coming up. I probably didn't get them till April though. So April probably will be like the 1-year mark for me having some of these plants, especially some of these Elbows, because they just haven't really been moving. I mean, they are expensive plants, you guys, so that's probably the reason. I mean, this is really high, good variegation. I'm not asking too much money for this either. I think I actually dropped the price on it. Yeah, I'm asking $100 for this right now. When I originally got this plant, this would have been like minimum, like probably like $175 probably could have even gotten close to 200, maybe a little over 200 for this plant back then. Prices really have been dropping, but for the level of variegation on this and how quickly this one in particular has been growing, and I mean, look at these aerial roots that are popping off over here. Like, this is a super happy plant. You can see we are well rooted in there. Roots are nice and healthy, and it is just growing so much more quickly compared to a lot of the other albos I have. So $100 is a really good price for this, you guys. A really good price. I cannot believe I still have this. It is by far the most beautiful one that I currently have in inventory. But yes, I had to showcase this one because I've just been so impressed with it. And I just, oh my gosh, I seriously, you guys know I'm probably gonna end up keeping it. You know I'm probably gonna end up keeping it. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. I really need to clear out some of this inventory, but definitely impressed with this one this winter. Okay, next up, I actually want to show you my Thai Constellation because we haven't revisited it since it got the fertilizer burn that actually burned its roots, and all the roots rotted off, and I had to put it back into water to develop new roots. And I don't even remember when the last time you guys actually saw it was, but I know it was still in water and the roots were looking super healthy. And I got a lot of comments from you guys being like, okay, it looks like it's gonna make it, it's gonna do it. And I'd been saying at the time that I thought I might try it in leca. Well, quick reminder, I did try to move it straight to leca. I think I told you guys this. I moved it straight to leca after removing the rotted roots to see if it would do better in leca than soil, and then the roots started. It was too much stress for the plant. Like, I should have just put it in water first to recover from its trauma before trying to put it in leca. So I had mentioned that I was going to try to put it in leca probably after it developed those roots in water. And so I did put it into leca. I'm going to have to double check and flash it up on screen for you because, once again, months, days, weeks, it's all blurring together for me, but I feel like it's probably been at least a month since I put it into leca, and we appear to be doing well. Now, I'm judging that based on the fact that our single remaining leaf still looks good and healthy here. It did get like a little chlorotic looking, so a little bit, not yellow, I guess you could say a little bit yellow. It was just losing some of its coloring when all that happened. That's not unexpected, but it doesn't look like it's dying off or anything like that. But I'm really judging this right now based on how the roots are doing, because I was worried when I put it into leca they were going to suddenly start dying off again, but they're not. As you can see, we have beautiful roots, and they really started to take off since I moved it from water into leca. Now, I did just give it regular water right away when I put it in here. I didn't give it nutrient solution because I wanted it to get used to the leca first. Now, we don't have new growth yet, but that's not unexpected considering what we've been through and considering the fact that Thai constellations tend to be a little bit slower growers. I can see we still have this point on here. Probably not going to read very well on camera. The point where the new leaf is going to come in, it is kind of bulged, but it was like that before the whole fertilizer burn thing happened. So there is a leaf trying to develop in there. It's just taking its time. And then as you can see down here, I made sure that the bottom of this node is just barely in the leca because I didn't want this to start to rot, which can happen if I put it too far down here because it'll just stay wet for too long. And at first I was worried it was going to be really unstable and flopping around, but it seems to be doing just fine. So very impressed that we held on through this whole catastrophe during the winter and managed to make a good enough recovery to now be in leca and really starting to take off more. Okay, let me go grab our next few plants. And actually one of them, hold on, let me check my list. There's a few we're gonna have to look at in place because they're just too big. Let me see if I want to do those next. Okay, actually let me grab one other one first, and then we will take a look at the ones that we need to look at in place. Okay guys, so the next plant I want to take a look at is my Philodendron micans, because I did repot this plant fairly recently, and I know some of you had told me that when you repotted yours, they threw a bit of a fit, and I was kind of worried that mine was going to as well. We have had some leaf loss. As you can see, we do have still some leaves that are turning a little bit yellow up in here. But look at all this new growth that has started coming in since I repotted it up here. All these new little vines that are starting. It is really starting to take off, pumping out new growth that's going to help fill it in, not just new growth on its existing long vines, but on these new vines as well. So I'm super happy about that. Now, at the time I repotted it, I did not trim any of the length off of it. However, since I was experiencing some leaf loss up here and everything, I decided to go ahead and give her a haircut. She was like hitting the couch again. So I took about probably a foot or two off of the bottom of this plant, and I think that has really helped. I've seen a lot less yellowing of leaves up here at the top since I did that. I do feel like this plant is getting like what looks like sun stressing on some of the leaves. Let's see if I can find them down here. I don't know if you guys can see how those leaves look a little bit reddish. They do get some direct light on them, even though this is pretty far back from a southern facing window at this time of year. So I'm not entirely sure what that is. It's kind of pretty though. Kind of really complements this plant since it already has the kind of reddish purplish backsides to the leaves. So all in all, doing really well. I'm really impressed with how we've handled the repotting situation, because also, you guys, just a reminder, I did completely remove all the substrate from the roots on this plant. And that causes a bit more trauma to the roots and the plant in general than if I was to just not mess with them and take it up. But it was not in my epiphyte mix, and that's why I wanted to do that. Now, I have been having to water this plant actually a little bit more frequently since I did that, which also not entirely normal, because normally when we go up to a larger pot, we're having to water less frequently. But this mix that this plant is now in is way chunkier, way airier, way more well draining, so it dries out more quickly. But beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love her so much, and I am so happy that we have managed not to just go completely crazy and throw a big old temper tantrum on me since the repot. Okay, I'm going to put her back, and we are going to go take a look at our last plants, where they live, because like I said, they're rather large. Okay, so up next we have my beautiful Philodendron Brazil, and this plant has just gotten so much more bushy over this winter. And honestly, you guys, I actually had to give her a haircut recently because she had grown all the way down into my tricolor Stromanthe here and was starting to actually grow back up herself. So lots of propagations in the work for this one, but you can imagine if it was still that long, and it was just about as full and lush looking as it is right now up at the top. So definitely impressed with this plant. Still pumping out a ton of new growth right now. It's probably a little bit hard to see. Let me try and zoom in. If you can see on the ends there, we do have some new growth that is still going on. This plant just has amazed me, and we are currently living in a north-facing window. And as you know, we don't get as much light in a north-facing window this time of year as we do the rest of the year, but honestly has done great. And last year I actually had moved this plant into the southeast-facing window in my kitchen because I was worried about how it was going to grow during the winter because of getting less light here in this window, and apparently I really didn't need to worry about it because this year I didn't move her and she's still done fabulously. Now, this plant has also not been repotted in a long time, so we are definitely going to need to take a look here in a few months and see how we are doing, but just based on what I'm seeing in terms of how we're growing and everything, I'm not seeing any negative signs, so who knows? We might be okay and not need to be repotted. As long as we are looking this good and producing this much new growth, I'm really not that worried about it. I am also noticing this one leaf right here is huge, you guys. Do you see that? That is one giant, big, also all green, heart-shaped leaf. Interesting. All right, you guys, well, we got one more plant to look at, so let's move to the kitchen. Okay, guys, so the last plant I want to take a look at is actually now two plants, and this is the Monstera Escaleto that I actually got at the first plant swap that I did this past year. I did swap one of my Philodendron gloriosums that I had in my plant inventory for this plant, and it was, once again, one plant when I got it. But for those of you who weren't around back then or don't recall, it was very hot when that plant swap was going on, and I did not pre-cool my car before loading up, and this plant suffered some pretty bad heat damage. Now, that's why the ends of these leaves, I know the light is shining really bright right there, but hopefully you guys can see that damage on that leaf. That is the result of that heat damage. We did lose a leaf on this part of the plant as well. Now, also, the other thing that happened was that the main plant, which this was the base of the plant, developed root rot as well shortly thereafter. Either that or there's a possibility, you guys, that it had root rot when I swapped it, but it wasn't in a clear pot or anything, so there's not really any way that I would have been able to tell. So I did have to repot it, and because I was worried about losing a bunch of leaves and everything, I decided to go ahead and propagate it at that time. So I cut the top off of it, which was this part, and propagated that in water. We did, like I said, lose one of the leaves on the remaining part, but we have since recovered, and we are, as you can see, pumping out a ton of new growth. Now I am experimenting using a pole with my aeroid mix in it. That will be an upcoming video for you guys. I just recently did this, so it hasn't really had time to root into it or anything yet. And then the other one, actually, I did put into leca just to see how things progressed from that standpoint. Now, if I'm being honest with you, they're pretty much growing at the same rate. I will say you can see the leaves were a little bit bigger starting out over here, but the vine is way bigger. I don't know if you guys can see that. Once again, let me zoom back in for a second. So hopefully you can see the difference in the thickness of these vines. This one is way thicker than that one over there. I mean, this one over here is so thin, it kind of cracks me up. It is way thinner than the actual original vine over there that it grew off of. So not exactly sure why that turned out that way. It kind of is so small compared to what it's attached to. It makes me feel like it's a little bit fragile and that it might like accidentally snap off, but hopefully not. And I do just have that pole in there as a support right now. It's not like the preferred pole I would like to use for that one. But once again, we're going to be revisiting these two plants in an upcoming video, and we can go into that in a little bit more detail. But I'm just really impressed that during this winter, they overcame all of the issues from the summer and have started to pump out a ton of new growth. And once again, you guys, I will probably keep one of these for myself. That's part of the reason that I went ahead and propagated it, but the other one I will add into my inventory, or I guess I should say keep in my inventory for my rare plant pop-up shops. Alright you guys, well those are all of my winter favorites. I hope you've enjoyed getting to look at them with me today. If you have some winter favorites, I would love to hear what they are, so comment down below and let me know. And if you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Aloha!